Welcome to this evening's Wellbeing series. I'm going to wait just a few moments while everyone comes into the room. Today, we're going to be talking about money matters and finances and setting yourselves up better from your financial well-being. So just while we wait a moment, if everyone wants to make sure they've got a cup of tea or a glass of water, maybe a notepad, there's going to be some good notes in this one, and we will then get started. Beautiful. I'm very aware of making sure we stay to time. So I'm going to get started while everyone's still popping into the room. Before I start anything more, I just want to acknowledge the Gadigal and Bidjigal people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I am dialing in from today. On behalf of Wellbeing Australia and our community, I acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to extend that respect to anyone Aboriginal or Torres Strait dialing in tonight or dialing in during our recordings after this evening. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Wellbeing Australia. I'm Catherine Taylor. I'm one of the directors of Wellbeing Australia, who's very proud to be hosting tonight and sharing some more of this discussion. For those of you who don't know Wellbeing Australia, we are a not-for-profit that is funded by our members. And so we are not driven by any particular agendas or corporate drives, government drives, or anything like that. We're very much community focused for everyone around Australia. We do have a lot of community overseas, and we welcome everyone who's dialing in from overseas as well. With what we're doing, our focus is about a diverse community. So we deliver sessions, workshops, and information and research around wellbeing that is positive and proactive. Everything that we focus on is solution focused about how you can manage those highs when life is working well, but also those lows when things aren't working particularly well for you. What we focus on is our broad base of community that includes anything from our first responder and healthcare community to our veterans and defence forces, to educators and workplace and corporate settings, to families and other communities. So we know there's a lot of different people dialing in tonight, but also joining these sessions at various times. So the focus that we're really looking at tonight is around our financial wellbeing and that link and the impact to a number of other aspects of wellbeing that we speak of. So when we talk about wellbeing, we're really recognizing a range of different elements: financial, social, spiritual, around that physical health as well. And so all of the different components that make our worlds work. These recordings are available to everybody. They are run monthly. Our series is that every single month we have a different topic focusing on a different area of wellbeing that everyone is welcome to join. Every quarter or quarterly throughout the year, there will be members workshop series as well. If you are a member of our community, you are very welcome to join. If you are not, you are welcome to join as a member, and then you have access to all of our members' events as well. There will also be a certificate of attendance sent to everyone who's online or who dials in for this session, and that will be sent after the completion of it. What we'd love is your feedback, your questions, those things that are really, why you've dialed in today, shared with us in the Q&A. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see those two little chat boxes and Q&A next to it. I'd love for you to share in Q&A any of those questions or where you're dialing in from tonight. If you share through Q&A, that will actually remain anonymous so that no one will know that question's coming from you. So if that's important to you, that's what we will be doing. So to kick us off for tonight, as I said, we're talking about money matters. So we are speaking about financial well-being and what's important considerations for different aspects of our financial well-being. And I'd like to welcome Peter Swan to our session tonight to be speaking for us. Hi, Pete.
Hello, how are you going?
Very good. It's a beautiful evening for us all. So this session, we're breaking up a bit. I'm hoping that your technology works for us.
Yes, am I.
That's all good. You're back.
Okay.
This session has come to us from a number of our members who were talking about different parts of their world and really speaking about how different points in their life, particularly early in their career or with young children and children that are entering that workplace, are really struggling to just get through. And I think after the last few years, Pete, you'd agree, there's a lot of financial pressures on people. So really value you joining us tonight and sharing some of those ideas and strategies that people might be able to do. Quick disclosure, and I know, Pete, you're going to say this as well. This is not a financial advice session. So I just want to preempt, this is not an advice session where you guys are getting like free financial advice. There are accessible tools and places to go for that, and we'll share more about that. But this is really about Peter sharing some of the strategies and the ideas of things that he encourages people to think about in their planning for financial success. So, Pete, I might let you share a little bit more about you, and I will just get some slides ready for you.
Yeah, well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me, Catherine. It's an honour, and I'm glad to share. As you mentioned, this is not financial advice. There's no financial advice at all. It's just some stories and findings and learnings that I've had in my probably about 50 years of working. I started work when I was 13, and I just love work. And, I haven't always been good at money, but you learn as you go. Yeah, that's my story. I've had 5 startup businesses. I've worked in probably 4 or 5 different industries. The theory and the principles of money and business are all pretty much the same. They're just working with different ingredients. So as we go along, if you have any questions or comments, please pull me up and we'll chat about it. Okay, so the first thing I want to just say is, managing money and all that, it doesn't come easy to everybody. Some people, it's just a natural ability they have and they can turn anything into gold. But some people don't understand it, like money and finance, some people are good at it, some people aren't. You hear the common thing, why can't I not get ahead in my finances? But it's like many things that we do, sport, music, studies, cooking, aeronautical physics, if that's your thing. Some people it comes easy naturally, some people it doesn't. And sometimes we have to learn and get a grasp of it. So with money, it's no exception. Sometimes it's a learned behavior and learn skills that you've got to put into practice. So to master money, so that you are mastering money and that you're not a slave to money, you have to understand the basic rules and principles. I call them recipes or formulas, and the mechanics of it, and apply those rules and learning. So where I'm coming from is, a lot of ups and downs financially. I think I'm very happy in a good place now. But a lot of it is what I've learned along the way.
Pete, I'd say that's really common, particularly now after the last couple of years. Wouldn't you agree that we perceive it that money's going to be really consistent and it's going to keep growing, but the reality is there's sort of moments where we've got a bit more money and moments where we've got less, or moments where we're more in a financial strain?
Yeah, definitely. Like, who saw the COVID-19 pandemic coming? 1 in 100-year event. As little as about 9 or 10 months ago, if you were borrowing money, it was around 2%. Now it's more than double that. Even the Reserve Bank made a statement that the interest rates are going to be very low for a long time. Well, they got it wrong. So yeah, you just don't know what's around the corner, and you have to make provision for the unexpected.
Yes. Let me know when you're ready to pop forward on slides.
Yeah, we'll go on the next one. Thanks. Next slide, please. Okay, so the main thing, or if I can say it this way, it's so simple. The whole thing of money is so simple. If I say this, you just have to live within your means. You've heard the saying, oh, I'm on beer income, but I've got champagne taste. Well, that sort of headset or behavior will put people into rack and ruin. So a lot of the things I'm going to share tonight is from George S.C. Glasson's classic book, and probably the Bible on money. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's like a parable or fable. So one of the principles is this, that you pay yourself first. Okay, so think about every job you've had, every income that you've had, or whether you're starting out in a career or a job, or you're, been in the workplace a long time. If you took 10%, say if you earn $100 a week, and you took $10 and put it aside, you did not touch it. You put it under the bed, or even better, put it somewhere you might get an interest in a bank account or something, but you never touched it, and you lived off 90% of your income, you would be so financially comfortable that it would shock you. But I'll tip that upside down and say it this way. If you're on $100 and you got a 10% increase, $110 a week, people don't usually save that money. They need the new fancy car or widget or whatever you need. So that's a general principle, that you pay yourself first, not the shopkeepers or the vendors or everyone that's trying to sell you something, or, keep up with the Joneses and have the latest thing. And a big problem today, which never was a thing many years ago, is a credit card. People think, oh, I've got a $10,000 credit card, I can just use that. Well, you're actually borrowing money. But, oh yeah, but I have to buy a thing online, a spare part for my push bike or something. You can do all that with the debit card. So I encourage a lot of people not to get a credit card. There is a perception that, oh, I have to go and get a credit card or go and get a personal loan to increase my credit rating and get a very good credit rating. There's nothing more further than the truth. You're best to have no debt at all if you want a good credit rating. So be thrifty. The golden rule is budget for your money. And it's so simple, the concept. So if I was going from Sydney to Brisbane, I don't know how long that is, probably 1,000 kilometres, and just say there was no petrol stations along the way, and I only put $50 of petrol in my car, you're not going to make it. It's simple as that. Now, that might sound a ridiculous statement, but no one would go from Sydney to Brisbane without enough money in their pocket or petrol in a tank to get there. But what we see in finance is quite often people seem to be, I know, in a bit of amnesia and not getting that concept. I'll say even a farmer who works with nature, if there's a drought coming, or they think there's going to be a dry spell, for the 6 months preceding that, they don't stay under the shower having a nice hot shower for half an hour every day. They conserve every bit of water. So in summing up, don't spend on needless things. Your money is better than your hands and in the shopkeepers. So everyone's got the deal. I say, there's a saying that the opportunity of a lifetime, the bargain of a lifetime, well, they come around every 2 or 3 weeks from what I can see. And keep out of temptation's way. So the big temptation, if you stay away from it, you're probably not likely to put your hand in your wallet or on your card and spend money, where probably if you woke up the next day, you thought, oh man, why did I buy that? So a couple of just analogies. The crocodile can only get you if you're swimming in the muddy waters in North Queensland. If you keep right away from those muddy waters in their territory, you're not going to be tempted. So look, I'll put in another life situation. If I was a recovering alcoholic, for example, and I think, oh, look, I'll just walk past, oh, that's where my mate's drinking, I'll just go in and say good day. I'm not going to have a drink. I'm actually delusional to think that I won't be tempted. So with spending money and overspending your money, just stay right away from the temptation and you'll find it a lot easier.
It's interesting what you say about credit and the credit card, Pete, because I think a lot of people do think they need to get things like that to have a credit rating to be able to get loans later. But what you're saying is manage your money well, and that will actually be your credit rating. So avoid getting into that debt piece.
Yeah, so you're spot on. So my job is a bank manager, and big part of my job is obtaining finance for people. If you have got no personal loans, you've got no credit card, you'll get a loan to buy something worthwhile like a house or an apartment. So I'll just tell you on credit cards, if you had a $10,000 credit card, for example, and you never used it, the banks used to view that, oh, well, he doesn't use it. We've got 12-month statements. And I'd ask the client, what do you got the credit card for? Oh, just a contingency, just a rainy day. If my car blew up, I could just use a credit card. And in the very old days, people, when they first came out, people would get them, put them in a cup, fill it with water and put it in the freezer, because they had this great idea. If I'm tempted to use it, I've got to get it out of the freezer. I've got to melt the water, get the card. Too much trouble. I'll worry about it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and they've lost the urge to spend on that must-have item right now. But how the banks assess a credit card now is if you have a $10,000 credit card and you never use it, we count your commitment as a monthly commitment as $400. So we take 4% of the limit, even though you never use it, as a monthly commitment, because tomorrow I could go to the casino and blow 10 grand. So yes, if you want a good credit rating, stick away from all loans.
Because I think you do link it really well to the concept of spending money. I think that the world is so accessible now. We've got online shopping, the whole tap and go, everything is so immediate that I think the concept of spending, a lot of the feedback I have from people who approach me who are in a challenging point, it's like, I didn't even notice that I was spending that much until I came back and did a bit of a cross-reference. I had a beautiful woman that I was working with recently, and she said she sat down and started working out how much she was spending on lunches every day at uni. And then she had a look at when she was going out 4 times a week, how much she was spending on drinks and travel and everything. And she said she just had no idea how much was disappearing, and she's saving up for a holiday. So to her, it was like a really big, hang on a minute, I'm not even thinking about that spend. So yeah, really interesting point.
Yeah, look, I come from an era when I got my first job. There was no such thing as internet banking and electronic money. You actually got your pay in an envelope, like a little envelope, a weird little mustard coloured thing. And say if we got $150, we would go home. My twin brother and I would get our little envelopes out. And you go, there's $20 to go to the pub on Friday night. There's $10 to put petrol in my car, and you would put it in an envelope, and that was it. So if you ran out of your spending money by Tuesday, there was none till Friday. But at the moment, like, everything is so accessible. And talking about, it's easy to spend. So for my hobby is guitars and music, and before they used to, if anyone's seen the movie The Castle, where they used to get the trading post each week and look at the bargains and buy the jousting sticks or whatever he'd buy. At the moment now, there's Gumtree, there's eBay, there's Marketplace and Facebook. There's that many lollies on the shelves that are so accessible. You got a credit card, it is easy to slip into buying something that doesn't really increase in value. So I've got no issue buying stuff that goes up in value, but yeah, just got to be careful. So just a few tips here. First up, I make no apologies here. I'm just going to say it straight and loud. Do not gamble. Full stop. I've seen the destruction of so many individuals, families. It's only fun. It's just a little dabble. If you think it's fun, get a new hobby, because some people may not succumb to going down into a big spiral, but some people it becomes addiction very easy. Okay, so next one is, well, what do I do with my money? Like, I reckon the best way is if someone that has done really well and worked hard, they haven't robbed a bank or it's not by illegal means, you'd be surprised how many people are really willing to share that information and teach you, because they started out doing it tough, probably got in a position where they had to work out how money worked. So the first thing is get knowledge or advice from someone with a track record. It was said to me once, someone tells you, I'll do this, do that, buy that, invest here. Ask them this question: show me your last 5 years tax returns. And they say, oh, no, you can't look at those. Well, there's, there's something there that they might not be all that they're claiming to be. Never put your principal at risk. Never. So a little bit of return over a long time is better than a fanciful return quickly. So I am not here to give any advice, but I've seen some investments that are very alluring and very good, and there's ads on TV and all that, but a lot of people have lost a lot of money. So be very careful with your principal money. Increase your knowledge and skills. So that's not mainly in investing or where you put your money, but what you can do. So if you've got more knowledge or more expertise or more skills, you're going to get an increase in salary. You're going to get a promotions. So for me, I'll just draw the analogy there. I started as a storeman and packer when I was 13, 5 days a week after school for 2 hours. My twin brother and I had got too much, so after year 2, we went back to doing 2 hours a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we worked from 4 to 6 after school. It was actually my uncle that had a Darrell Lee lolly shop, and we were sort of storemen and packers. And when we got 16, he also had a restaurant. And I used to work Friday nights as they called those days, inappropriate name now, a dish pig. And I was a kitchen hand. I learnt the skills, and I was hungry for knowledge, and I'd work really hard. Just happens because of that, I got more skills. So I was doing the oysters Kilpatrick, I was doing the grill fish, I was doing the salads. And one night the chef just called in sick. My uncle, I turned up at 6 o'clock for work, and my uncle said, Pete, you have to go home, mate. We've got to close the restaurant. I go, oh, Uncle Ted, why is that? And he said, well, the chef's calling sick. I go, well, I can do the oysters, I can do the fish. And he said, can you? So he opened the restaurant just for the bookings, did about 30, 40 covers, and he was shocked what I could do. Now, out of that, long story cut short, I got an apprenticeship as a chef. I ended up working in the Sydney Hilton. So I'm from a coastal town halfway between here and Brisbane, but I ended up working the premium restaurant in Australia in the day, the San Francisco Grill. So increasing your knowledge and expertise and skills is not just about finance and how to invest, but in what you do, because there's a rule: the more people that can do your job, the less you'll get paid. But the less people that can do your job, the more that you'll get paid. So those knowledge, skills, and attitude, and you're investing in yourself. Invest in yourself. It's not about just investing your money, and you'll earn more money. And good luck comes to those who seek opportunities and act on them quickly. So there's a saying that good luck favors the people who are seeking opportunities, that are working hard and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Be cautious with your money. So don't lend it to those who can't repay you. I don't think many people would be lending money to people, but I've seen it done where, out of sympathy, you might lend someone some money, but, they'll go and blow it. So stick away from that.
That can be tricky too with family, Pete. I think people get, like, as you say, not sharing with friends can be one thing, but I notice there's more people who are sort of in situations where family are maybe asking for help or needing help. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, that goes into another area. Say if it was a business associate or partner in your business, that's probably fraught with danger. But when it's family, there's another whole outfall if things do go sour, and the person you lend the money to, the family member, It might be just bad luck, might be bad management. It could have been they were squandering the money and, you know, being dodgy. But at the end of the day, it's your family. You know, it's more, there's more emotion, there's more relationship that you're also going to sever and break up families over money. You never want money to be the thing that would divide a family. Yeah, I'd say, you know, be very careful with that. On the other hand, I've seen, and you see a lot with the European people of European heritage, and even the continent and subcontinent. That's how they work. They all do it as families, and you know, I know there was families that used to come in the area where I used to live, and they would bring people over from overseas, and they would share a house. And then they'd come and work in the farms, and then they get up and running, and then they have their own house. But the obligation was them to do the same thing to get others. So it can work, but just be very careful, because last thing you want is, you know, you can have all the money in the world, but if your family and all those relationships are just bitter and horrible, you probably think, oh, I wish we never ventured down that way. Now, this is a bit of a hard one, and not, you know, it's my view, but take comfort in hard work. It is your friend. I love work. I love working hard. I don't enjoy, you know, slavery or it being oppressive, but you feel good when you do a hard day's work. When you go home, oh, geez, I'm tired. I had a busy day. The day went really quick. It is actually good. And I believe that we're all meant to work. So if I work 5 days a week, on the Saturday, I'd say, for an example, I went for a surf and I had a swim around in the ocean and had a great thing. I really enjoy that. And it might be only once a month that I could do that. But say the guy that doesn't have a job, he goes to the beach every day. In the end, he doesn't even enjoy it, because it's just there. It's just blasé. So it gives you values, and your attitude and all that in what you do, whether you're self-employed, whether you work for a boss, it is your friend, and it will lead you much more than financial freedom and comfort. It'll work in a whole lot of areas. If you're determined, you will get ahead. We touched this before, that better off to get a small return and do it regularly and do it now and start now, than thinking, oh, I'll put into something and it sounds a great investment. You'll lose your shirt pretty quick. Like I said, the opportunity of a lifetime comes around every 3 weeks. Yeah.
And I think that small return is remembering, like you said in the beginning, that $10 that you're putting aside actually does grow. It's something I love in a lot of the young people that I'm working with, is now that everything's on a banking app, they can segment their savings. So they can have these goals of, you know, they're saving up for a phone or for a holiday or for a car or for a unit or whatever it might be. And like you say, that determination of seeing your goals starting to come. And I think that being able to feel like you're on your way rather than feeling like I'm not sure, that can be quite a helpful way of just seeing those small steps towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I went through a stage, and in the ups and downs of my financial position, you know, friends would say, oh, let's go out for dinner, Pete. We're going to the such and such restaurant. And I was a bit embarrassed, to be honest. I go, oh, no, thanks. Look, no, I'm all right. You guys go ahead. I'll catch up later. But I knew to get ahead and get my finances and get back on my feet, that's what I had to do. Yeah, so it's sometimes looking at that bigger picture.
And you can have just as much fun in different ways. We get creative.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's have a look at earning an income. So breaking it down into there's 3 ways. The first one is there's 2 ways. Sorry, I'll start again. 2 ways of basically earning money is income from working. So with working, either you are an employee, you've got a boss, you work for the boss or the company, or you start your own business. And so I call that working from personal exertion. You go in and you do a hard day's work, and whether you work for yourself or someone else, you've done it. The other way is where you don't work and you invest. And that's where your money grows for you. So we all go to work. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes you have a bad day, on the job side, on the work side, or in the office. Sometimes it's difficult. It's not uncomfortable. But that's life. It's never if you're a sailor, I'm sure when someone sails from Mooloolaba down to Cairns or up to Cairns, it's not always a nice gentle breeze pushing them along. Sometimes there's headwinds. Sometimes it's choppy. That's it. But just roll with it. Like I said before, more people that can do your job, the less you'll get paid. The less people that can do your job, the more you get paid. So if you specialize, or maybe that's the wrong word, but the more you can do that people can't do, it's just a supply and demand, you'll get a lot more pay. And I'm not quite often surprised that people can earn so much, but they don't seem to be working as hard or as long or tedious as other people. It's because they have got something that no one else can do. Now, this next one is something I've haven't set out to do, or a principle. It's just what I've done. So I've had many different businesses. It worked in different industries. But if I'm passionate about it and love it, that's what I do. And every time where I go, oh, I'm not really interested in this, I might say, well, I'll work my way out of it. I'll work in for another 6 months and set myself to do what I want to do. Sometimes I just, if I'm in the financial position that, I've got a bit of a buffer there, I will just go and, start a new business. Started 5. But if you're passionate about it and you love it, you're probably more likely to be very successful than if you're doing it drudgily. And, in our day, if you're 24 hours, you've got 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation. It's a third of your life. So, if you're going to something that you just loathe, it will affect your health. It will affect your health, well-being. And there's no rule or no law that says you can't go to work and enjoy it. If you're good at what you do, success will follow, and good luck favors the diligent. One thing that's not taught quite often is people's disposition and people's attitude and their, I'll say, the character. So Warren Buffett, he was once the richest man in the world. If you haven't seen him, just YouTube Warren Buffett. He's a businessman. Now, his company Berkshire Hathaway is probably the most successful investment company ever. So he hasn't made his money like, say, the IT giants like Elon Musk and these guys. He's done it through companies. He buys companies. Now, if you want to work for him, he's got 3 rules. He hasn't got pages of, HR, stuff. 3 things. Smart. You got to be smart. You got to be switched on. And he says this, in what he does, that's one of the prerequisites. Now, if you're, say, builder's labourer, you need muscle, you need strength, you need a really strong body. But for what he does, smart people. Enthusiasm. You want to come into work enthusiastic, have a crack, have a go, put in your big effort. Third one is integrity. Are you diligent? Are you careful? Is your character, have you got the right attitude? Are you going to do the right thing by the client or the customer or the company? And he stresses this point, that the most important of all those is number 3. What's this person's disposition? What is their character? Because he said, if you've got someone that's the first 2, very smart and enthusiastic, but they haven't got the most important one. They will destroy your business very quickly. They'll destroy your client base. So this bit here is just a little bit on, what you do at work, because that's how you derive money. So that's just, my views and my observations of working as an employee and an employer. So here's a question. Let's just stop for a minute and ask the question. Okay, Catherine, if you started a company, I'll put it in my person. If I started a company and I gave someone a job and they were well paid. Okay, so I've given Fred Nurk a job and I pay him well. I pay him the award or what he's entitled to. We're not trying to, give him what he's not entitled to. Does a good job, or might say, well, okay, here's a bonus, or, take your wife out for a pizza or something. What would I expect? What would I be happy with that employee? So I turn it around the other way. If I'm an employee and I'm working for that boss, what am I going to be like? Because you do unto others as you have them do unto you. If I'm a hard boss or a mean boss, you're not going to get the best out of your employee. Works the other way. If you're a good employee, everyone gets on with you, everyone likes you, you do a good job, you're fair, you're not lazy, you're diligent. Guess what? You will want to be employed by other bosses. And it's a small world, and it doesn't take much to blot your copybook or to get a bad reputation. But there's a saying, you're only good as your last job or the last thing you did at work. So if there's a saying, I'm not sure who said it, a good friend of mine, Tim Madden, brought it up. He said, culture, in business, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. Now, so no matter what your strategy is, the culture of your workplace is far more important. Okay.
And that came to be really relevant over the last few years, didn't it? When we saw people transitioning between industries, when certain industries were like frozen and they swapped across, it was really the work ethic and the behaviors that people were sort of coming through, or people being able to reset that they thought they could only be in one particular role or earn an income from one place, but suddenly found others. And there's also, I see a massive expansion in like that gig economy. People talk a lot about the gig economy. So people running their own businesses, as you say, or things from home where they're earning that little bit of extra money. So people who might have felt like they couldn't hold down a job because they had too many other commitments as a carer, or, just life was busy. But now there's those opportunities, and that's coming back to people really valuing not just the skills you bring, but the person that you are. And I think that's a really interesting one, because when we think about money and income, sometimes we focus so much on the dollars and cents, we forget where they're actually coming from.
Yeah. The once in 100-year event, the worldwide pandemic, was very interesting. And, I'm sort of got a bit of a unsatiable appetite for learning and looking at things and sussing things out. And just say, I'll give you a small example, is there were food vendors, cafes or whatever. And for some of them, they go, oh no, this is no good, because people can't come in and have their coffee, don't have their breakfast, their avocado on toast, they can't come in. Oh, the pandemic has destroyed our business. A jolly pandemic, and a bit of swearing and a bit of cursing. But I've seen people in the same industry, and they did this. They actually put in their like cafe. So I'm from the eastern suburbs in Sydney, so a lot of cafes and all that sort of around. There's no one in there. They changed the front counter. So they actually had no staff waiting on the tables, but they did like trays of lasagna, trays of take-home potato bakes, trays of all these things. So you could go past, you go, there's a food, there's a meal for my, for our family of 4. And I was talking to one of the cafe owners or food owners, and he said, funny thing is, we were wondering how this is going to go, but we just, you know, and he was a sailor, and he said, sometimes when you're sailing on the boat, the wind changes, you got to change your direction. Otherwise, you're just going into headwinds. You got to tack to the left and to the right to get to the destination. And he said, our revenue dropped by 30%. But he said our overall net profit increased by 10%. Because he goes, wow, this is great. Not paying all the staff to wait on the tables. There's not people sitting on their computer in the cafe for 2 hours having one glass of water and one coffee. He said people are coming in now and their average spend is $20, $30. So there's always that opportunity if you're looking for it. Okay, so that's enough on working and working for money. But next one I'll touch on is you can derive income from investment. So there's two portions of an investment when we look at it. One is the capital return. So that's how much your investment goes up or down. So I'll give you an example, cryptocurrency and the whole crypto thing. There's a while there, the people made a whole lot of money. The capital return is really good. Then it's gone really down. So that's the capital value, the value of your asset. The other part of an investment is the money it puts back in your pocket. So if you bought, not giving any advice here, but just say, so you bought a share in a company and they pay a dividend. So they might pay 2% dividend. So you put in $100, they pay you $2 each year. That's the return that it puts back in your money. So some investments pay that, some pay it better than others. It's just what it is. But say that share, it might be worth $100, but it's always going up in capital value. It's got a history of going up. So you're getting a capital return. Take a different investment, just say a property. You buy an apartment as an investment. So it costs you $500,000. Hopefully that will go up in time. If it does, you've made a capital return, a capital gain, we call it. But you also get a yield from it. It puts money in your pocket. So the tenant's going to pay you $500 a week in rent. So that's the basic two basics of investment without giving any advice or put your money here, there. So usually they're a mix of both, but that's a whole nother thing. And when the purpose of this meeting tonight, we're not getting to investments and investment advice. But there is a principle which is undeniable. It's called the law of compounding. So I was talking to Catherine before the meeting and said when I was a kid, there was a show and on TV, it was a cartoon, and it was about this character called the Roadrunner. He was like a big ostrich or an emu, and I think he was a fox or a wolf or something. He's always trying to snare the Roadrunner. And one of the illustrations, he was on the top of this big mountain in the snow, and he got a snowball and he rolled it. He pushed it down the hill. As it gathered, it got bigger and bigger, and it got so big that was this big boulder of snow going down. And he waited till the Roadrunner come down. He pushed it down, and it just engulfed. It engulfed the Roadrunner. So that's an illustration of compounding. So with compounding, the best thing is to start, and the longer you're in it, the more it compounds. So what happens then? So just say, if we're talking before, you had $100 and it paid you, just say it paid you 7.2% interest. Okay, you say in a deposit in a bank or a share or whatever. Okay, if you left that, so you put $100 in, and it paid you 7.2 or $7.20. You just left it in the investment. You didn't take it out and spend it. You just left it in there. So what happens the next year? You're getting interest on $107.20, not on the 100, because you've left it in. So the compounding, they call that compounding interest. Now, there's Albert Einstein, pretty clever fellow. He said this: compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. While some people question whether that he actually did say it, the fact is the same. It is just so powerful. So let's talk about a general broad thing, investment. It's not where do I put it? What's the best deal? Just start now and start putting that 10% away, and you'll have a lot more money if you start now than if you put it off for 10 years. Just because the compounding effect of starting early, doing it consistently over time, will return you manyfold. And if you start later and put big amounts in. So here's the illustration. If you're offered $1 million today, or I'll give you 1 cent, and I said, I'll double that for 30 days, which would you choose? If you took the $1 million, you would forego $4 million, because 1 cent, the 1 cent option that doubled every day for 30 days would balloon out to $5.5 million. And that's just in 1 month due to the law of compounding. So it's that growth on growth. So simply when your investment compounds, the returns that you earn reinvest and make you more money. So it is so powerful. It's just amazing. So another interesting thing in investing is the rule of 72. So if you have an investment or a debt, a loan, and the rate is 7.2%, and you leave the money, the returns in the investment, or if it's a loan and it's increasing, but you don't pay anything off, it just keeps growing, or keeps compounding, it'll double in 10 years. So I've just got a bit of a table here, assuming a rate of 7.2%. Now, I've just plucked out these numbers because I went onto Google, and there was the average price of a house in Sydney in the year 2000, or it might have been a property or something. But regardless, say there was something that you bought for $312,000. 10 years later, assuming 7.2%, now I'm not saying that's realistic or unrealistic, 10 years later, it's worth 624. Then that'll double again, 1.2 million. 10 years later, 2.5 million nearly. The year after that, 5 million. Now here's where the law of compounding kicks in. 10 years later, you've turned your 5 million into nearly 10 million. So that's 60 years. So say, well, let's go 40 or 50. So if someone was in their early 20s or 30s and they bought a property in Sydney and they held it for 50 years, that's what it'll end up. So, but in all that, whatever you do, a bit of caution is better than a lot of regret. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just do what successful investors do and have done consistently. And be careful of all the people that want to grab your money, invest it from you, because there's more in it for them than you. So, I'm a chef by trade. And what I worked out is best way to be a really good chef is watch, look, and see what everyone does. And you get the best recipe, what that chef does. But he doesn't do that thing over there very well, but boy, he does that well. So you pick the eyes out of all the recipes and all the methodologies, and you make your own recipe, Bible, if you like. And that's what you use for investment risk. So, yeah. Okay. So I've covered off on all that before.
And as you said then, Pete, I guess that's important to remember that if it's the debt, like the credit card that's got that interest rate on it, that's how quickly it blows out, right? So I might think it's not a massive debt, but actually by not getting rid of the credit card debt, it's just continuing to balloon like that.
Yeah, and those figures we just had were at 7.2%. Credit cards now go from 10% to 24%. So yeah, you're right. It works the other way. It works the other way with debt. Yeah, it can strangle you and kill you. That compounding effect on debt, which is working against you.
I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, so I'll let you keep going.
Okay, so go quickly. Probably I'll move a bit quickly now. One of the things is risk. Okay, so I'll say this and I'll be really quick. Has anyone got it? I'll just speak it out as I said. If you've got a car, say it's worth 20 grand, and you I said to you, hey, what sort of car? You got a Mazda or whatever it is, Holden. What's it worth? 20 grand? Oh, have you got it insured? And you go, oh yeah, how much insurance costs? Oh, 2 or 3 grand a year, 2 grand. I'm young, so the premiums are higher. If I said you don't insure your car, you go, Pete, you are a goose. What are you talking about? Well, I'll say this, an asset makes you money or gives you money. A liability loses you money and it decreases. So I'll say this, if you're a young person or starting out in your career, your biggest asset is that you wake up each day and go to work. Okay, so I'll say if you're on 25 years, age of 25, you earn 58,000 a year, starting out in your career. And say the salary is indexed at the moment at 3.6%. If you were 25 years and you were planning to work to the current pension age of 67, you would earn approximately $5 million of work income in your life. So my question is this, would you insure something worth 5 million or something worth 20,000 that in probably 10 years is worth nothing? So the most important thing to cover the risk is your income. So is another discussion, but you can insure that, and it's actually quite cheap. And I'll just give you a quick thing. I had a cataclysmic health thing a few years ago, and I had my income insured till age 65, and it paid 75% of my wages. So and here's a question. Everybody, if you're working, you've got an income, what would happen if I was your boss and said, sorry, as tomorrow we've got no job? How do you pay your bills? How does the family feed? How do you feed your family? How to pay the rent? So you must have a buffer. Save that money. Don't spend all your income. You must have a buffer and a savings and cover your risk. And you can insure your income. You can insure your death. So if you die, I've got a beautiful wife and 2 children. They are provisioned for. So move on now, if you could please, Catherine. She's conscious of time. So planning for the future. So if you get sick, you can't work. And what if something happens that you're in the position that you're on life support? So there's things there to mitigate the risk. And that's a whole nother story. It's called powers of attorney, guardianships, and having a will made. Haven't got time for this, but all these things, I'm just putting the points out that are part of financial well-being, which also helps your mental and physical well-being as well. Okay, next one, please, Catherine.
That's a good point, Pete, because that's when people get stressed, is they feel like they're letting their families down and those sorts of things. Yes,
so if you could bear with me, I commend this book to you. Now, I was saying to Catherine, everyone that's been on the live event, I will give them a gift of this book because it's probably the best thing I've seen on managing money. Do we have time to show the video, Catherine?
We won't have time to show the video, but what I will do, Pete, I'll just stop sharing and I'm going to send it as a link to everybody. If you want to just share a few last thoughts and comments while I send it in the chat to everyone.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you everybody for attending. And look, I don't have all the answers and I'm not a guru. But look, I've learned a lot and I've made a lot of mistakes. But out of those, I've learned a lot. And I'm happy to meet with anyone or help them or work with Catherine. And a lot of people just put this in the too hard basket, but it can change the whole direction of your life and for your family. And I'm just astounded that in all the things that we learn at school and high school and university, that basic financial literacy is just missing. So, I was talking to Catherine, I'm on a real mission to sort of change that. but it's a work in progress. And I just want to thank you for all attending, and thank you for having me, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. That's excellent. And I love how you've been able to share the breadth, right? So when we're thinking about financial well-being, everybody tends to think, just how do I get as much money as possible? When I was in my HR career, the classic question people used to ask me, particularly when they were midway through their career, is, I want a part-time job that's paying me $1 million a year. Like, that's my happy place kind of thing. And wouldn't that magic wand be great, right? If everybody could. But what you've shared is actually, you don't have to have the $1 million salary if you're smart about what's happening with things, and if you just reconsider at different points. So those tips you've given about, where you're at in your personal well-being, what's happening with your family or from your physical health, and just really having a moment to consider what if, right? And I've had a lot of personal friends and family who have had those health instances in the last few years. And it has been one of those things where there's a lot more conversation about income protection and about all those other insurances. So it's quite timely for you to be sharing all of those tips and strategies. I think it's fantastic. Quick question for you. Do you think that you have to start all of this saving, early? If I'm not, if I'm 40, 50, wherever sort of thing, is there still hope for me to set myself up better if I've lost income over the last few years, or, like you said, going through something that's draining my resources?
Yeah, well, without going into a lot of detail, I had the world at my feet financially, and something happened, and I was at the age of 40 where I had to start again. So better off to start at 40 than leaving it till 45 or 50. If you're 50, start at 50. If you're 60, start at 60. Earlier the better. And that's what I say after tonight. I encourage you just to start, because you'll come back in 12 months and go, wow, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have that chunk of money now.
Yep.
That's giving me a whole lot of peace of mind, having that buffer of cash.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pete. And thanks for the offer of sharing that book with everybody who's joined tonight. We will make sure that goes out, and we will share the slides with everybody as well, so that, like you say, everybody can do a little bit of a reflection on, what can they do, what can't they do, and where can they actually start today. So thank you very much for your insights and your sharing, Pete.
And watch the video. It's a cracker.
Yeah, definitely. It is a great one. It's one of those brilliant animated ones. I love those. So for everyone else, thank you. I have shared in the chat box the link to that summary that is, the top tips from what Pete was actually talking about from the book that he strongly encourages. And that's one that I'm going to be getting and reading definitely. I've also shared with you the link to register for our next session, which is on next month. It'll be on the 22nd of March. And that will be the fabulous Graham Bint, who will be speaking to us about how we can move forward from trauma and the link to our nutrition. So you may remember Graham spoke a couple of years ago at our First Responders Summit and our Veterans Summit about PTSD and recovery strategies. He's actually going to be sharing with us that link between, what we're eating or what we're fueling our bodies with, and how that connects with the PTSD moving forward, basically. So really looking forward to that. And it's one that we have been asked a lot about. That one is a members session, which means you do need to be a member of Wellbeing Australia to be able to join it. If you are a member, it's not a problem. You just go on and register straight away. If you're not a member, you can join as an individual, so a professional membership, or if you're part of an agency or an organisation that wants to talk about group membership for all your staff, you can just email us and we can help out from there. But for tonight, I'm going to make sure everybody gets their book from Pete. They get the information from the slides, but also we'll share with you a survey and your certificate for attending. And we thank you. We hope you've been able to walk away with a few things to be able to apply in your own world to make that space a little bit better. So thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.